Hey, welcome back to the Pop Set Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. The host Jeremy Todd. Hey, and I just found this website. It's kind of cool. I got to tell you guys about this real quick before we get into the interview today. And I'm probably gonna butcher it already. I probably should have been more prepared for it, but it was so cool. You could actually search words to see like what had the best Google search optimization when you actually try and launch something. Now I've got the best 6 months of your year of your life coming up here on June 15th. If you're tired of being stuck in life, you're tired of just the same old, and you want to break through, go to besthalfyear.com. And actually the rating was kind of cool. So if you shoot me an email and I can go over that with you as well, but those are some of the things we're going to go over of how to get your business, how to get your life to the next level. Besthalfyear.com. Make sure you run and check it out. Darren Reinke's in the house today, and I'm super excited. Now, Darren doesn't know this, but actually, well, let's briefly about Darren. Darren helps leaders from the inside out. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have him on here. He's got a book that is absolutely crushing it, The Savage Leader. He's got a podcast called The Savage Leader. And he also has a company that he actually coaches people called Group 60. It's an executive coaching and training company based in San Diego. But my friend, I saw you graduated high honors in UC Davis, which is just outside of Sacramento. And man, it's a beautiful campus, beautiful area. I've been to there. I've been to Davis, California. I actually lived outside of, I lived in Sacramento for a little bit. And then I moved kind of up a little bit, got into Grass Valley. Are you familiar with Grass Valley?
Absolutely.
Moved up there, man. So beautiful, beautiful country out there. And then I moved to North Carolina, but I'm back and I'm glad you're on the show. So Darren, long story short, my friend, hey, welcome to the show, brother.
Great to be here.
You know, I've had this question over the last 2-3 days, and I thought, who better to ask than this question? I work with entrepreneurs, people that are just trying to get unstuck in life. And one of the biggest things that they have is they just had this belief deep down that, well, I don't know if they had the belief. Let me take that back. They have a belief that they can do anything in their life. However, society, their friends, their family tells them that's never going to happen. They can't do it. What would you tell to someone that just wants to break free, but they're scared and they don't have the mindset to do it? What do you tell somebody like that?
One of my favorite and more important topics, or most important topics, because I think self-limiting beliefs are those voices in our heads, those comments, those innocuous comments from people in the past. And we can get into this later on, but that was a big reason why I wrote the book, was because just to dial back that voice. I mean, I would say listen to those voices, but also be objective with those voices, because so many times those opinions are just perspectives of somebody else, and people generally are negative about things. They're not positive. They don't see big wins coming in their own lives. I think a lot of that bleeds over into other folks, but I think the big thing is listen to them, but also don't listen to them. See if there's any data in there, but also warning to people, which is that voice, that opinion is most likely your own voice that's talking to yourself in your head. I'm not ready. I don't have enough experience. I am not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I didn't go to the right school. I mean, just insert phrase, right? Self-deprecating phrase that really gets in people's way. So it's all about just blowing through those things, blasting through them, trying to see if there's any objective data, but also replacing those thoughts with more positive thoughts. So I become more and more a believer of positive mantras and saying things to pull yourself forward versus these statements, these comments that hold yourself back.
You know, I love what you said there, because you talked about saying, you said, hear what they're saying. And I love that too, because I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the growth process, is if you actually never internalize that, hear it and hear all those negative things, that's real. And like you said, that's probably your limiting beliefs, is the things you're already telling yourself, but don't fall in love with them. I mean, hey, yes, those things may be true as well. You may not be ready, but if you don't ever take that first step, you're never going to take the second one, and you got to get going. So I love that what you were saying. Now, you also mentioned affirmations. Are you an affirmation guy?
More recently, absolutely. So I don't know if it was the Miracle Morning or Tim Ferriss, but started to do a regular routine in the morning where part of it's affirmations, part of it's a combination of journaling and affirmations. But I think you just have to say those positive things to ourselves, because look, acknowledgement doesn't come that often from the outside, whether it's your boss, whether it's, hopefully your spouse is giving you some positive acknowledgements, but we need to start to generate those things from the inside, because it's so important, because we don't get enough of that recognition externally.
Man, dude, you said that so right, because it's so funny you say that, because the last couple of interviews and podcasts I've done on just my solo episodes, I've been talking about giving yourself credit. Being proud of yourself, being proud of the accomplishments that you made in your life, because, we compare ourselves so quickly to Instagram, to social media, to Facebook. And oh my gosh, look at, so-and-so's got a great big new house and they're taking all these vacations. Yet we take away that, the actual things that we have accomplished in our life. It's the old saying, comparison's the thief of joy. And it's so true. What do you tell somebody like, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have a hard time complimenting themselves and having the confidence in themselves. Like, how do you, I mentioned affirmations, like walk me through that. Like, what would you tell someone that's just down on their luck, that just can't get out of their own way, that just doesn't have that mentality like you and I do?
I don't think affirmations are just the cure all for everything. I think there's a lot of things you need to look at. So it's, if you're down on your luck, it's why you're down on your luck. Is it, I think so many people generally can have a victim mindset, especially people who are down on their luck. It's the situation, it's somebody else, woe is me. Those people are frankly a little bit tough. But I think if you can start to get at what's holding you back, and so many times it is us, it is those comments, those thoughts. I think about my own limiting belief about not being able to be a good writer. And really that stemmed back from, you referenced my undergraduate at UC Davis. And because I didn't do as well in my English classes as my other science and math classes, because I was aiming for med school at the time, and English was really a little bit of a trip up for me. And what I realized in reflection is that I didn't understand what Kafka meant, and when he was talking about in the Metamorphosis, didn't mean I wasn't a good writer, but I still had that thought in my head that just persisted for so many years. And then when it came time to actually write a book, I had to deal with that self-limiting belief head on. But what I realized in reflection was that was really just my own head, my own voice talking about something that didn't necessarily relate to what I was trying to do.
You mentioned one of the most powerful things in the world is you wrote a book. Now, I wrote my book just about 6 months ago, and it's amazing the things that are in your own head. And when you actually put them on a piece of paper and actually write them out, all the creativity, all the like again, we talk about, we don't have this, we feel like we don't have this greatness within, but in reality we do. Now, you wrote the book, The Savage Leader, 13 Principles to Become a Better Leader from the Inside Out. Why did you write the book? And tell me, out of the 13 principles, you got to have a couple. I know it's like kids, maybe maybe you like all 13 of them, but give me a couple of your favorite out of the principles. Give me your top 2 or 3 favorite principles.
So sure, just let me answer your first question, but in terms of why I wrote the book. So it was a couple of reasons. So one was just the realization that I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to challenge that limiting belief and do something that I didn't think was frankly possible. I'd always thought in my angst-filled 20s, hey, I'll write a book, about something I'm upset about, relationships of the past or people in my life, or I'd write a memoir if I had a life interesting enough beyond my kids and my grandkids to read about. But I just didn't think that was really it for me. I didn't think I could do it. So I did it as a way to challenge myself. And actually, a friend of mine turned to me about 5 years ago and said, Darren, it sounds like you're going to write a book. And I thought it was a question, but I think it was really a challenge. So I really built on that and I started to do it. And so it was part challenging myself to do something I didn't think I could do. Also, I realized I'd been doing so much work speaking and coaching and working with executives and leaders across all walks of life. And frankly, I'd learned so much from those people. And I wanted to put it in an easy to consume package that people could just enjoy on a weekend or even on a vacation. So it's written within that kind of style. So that's interesting to read. But I wanted to get out and put those stories out to people. And then, from a career perspective, it's helpful to package that knowledge and to put it in front of people, because it's a great way to expose themselves to you in terms of your thinking for a really low price point. So get a sense for, hey, what does Darren talk about? What does he think about? How does he develop leaders? And that's where the 13 principles came to fruition.
After you wrote the book, I'm sure, I know it's impacted lives all around the world. Give me a takeaway, because one of the things when I wrote my book, I was just blown away by some of the lives that it touched. How did it feel after you got done writing it? What went through your head? Do you consider yourself an author? I mean, that's always a weird thing for me too. Like, I guess, I guess I'm an author, but I'm more of a, I'm a podcast host. I'm a coach. I'm a dad. I'm all these other things. What do you consider yourself now? Because you do so many things, like you said, you're speaking, you're coaching, you're writing, you're doing all these things. So the book is done. How do you identify Darren Reinke? What are you, when someone says, who are you? How do you answer that question?
That's a great question, actually. And for me, it's just more about just making people great, helping them become better from the inside out, helping them achieve their own definition of greatness. Because I don't know how you label that, but to me, that's what gets me up in the morning. And greatness is kind of an interesting thing to think about, in that that's not necessarily being the next Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, the next Elon Musk. It could be just, you want to be the best teacher. You want to be the best parent to your kids. You want to be the best spouse to your husband or wife or partner. And to me, that's what really gets me excited. That's how I would label myself, as someone who just lives and breathes every day to try to help people be the best that they can be, which sounds a little bit cliche, or probably a lot cliche. But what I realized several years ago when I was thinking about my own why, my own purpose, was that I was doing 3 different things in my life that I thought were really misaligned, not misaligned, but didn't think they connected. I was obviously do the work that I do, quote unquote, commercially as an executive coach and trainer, but also I do a lot of volunteer work with the Navy SEAL Foundation or the Navy SEAL community and some special operators, volunteering to help them transition from incredibly successful military careers into civilian careers. So I do that as a volunteer coach, but I also give back a lot in terms of coaching youth sports. So my son has a playoff game tonight in baseball, and I give back a lot there too. And what I realized is those 3 things are really the same thing. You're just working with a different audience and you're helping them get from a different X to a different Y. So that's a little bit about in terms of how I think about myself.
Well, I love it. And you're talking about, it's interesting when you're talking about coaching and helping others and helping Navy SEALs, which I'm a big Navy SEAL fan. I mean, I'm a huge fan of obviously the popular ones, Jocko and David Goggins. I'm big fans of those guys, but I know there's a lot of other Navy SEALs out there that are coming back from major deployments and seeing crazy things, and getting them back into a normal society is very, very difficult. So I appreciate you doing all that, especially obviously just with Memorial Day being just a few days ago, and that being very, very important to me and to so many other people around the world, to around the country. It should be. When you were talking about helping so many people, one of the things that I'm very upfront in my book that I struggle a lot of times with when I get depressed a lot. I battle that. And I think a lot of people battle depression in general. But one of the things that I've learned the most, and I'm glad you brought this up, is the more people I help, the more people I can stay busy in front of, man, it just makes my life, all my troubles, they just like melt away. And I love that you said that, because it's so important. So if anybody out there listening to this podcast, no matter where you are around the world, if you're struggling, you're down and out, you're bummed out, the best way to get out of it is obviously to help others, to get to the next level. And man, just the more you give, the more you get. It's that old saying that I think it's an old Jim Rohn saying. It means so much to me. And I appreciate you bringing that up as well. You started the podcast. How long ago did you start the podcast?
In February.
Tell me about the podcast. Why? Okay, so you got the book, you got the coaching company. Now, why the podcast? And tell people, obviously, I want my listeners to find the podcast. Why did you start the podcast? And tell me about some of the guests you've had on there.
Sure. So the Savage Leader podcast is really an extension of the book. So the book, as you mentioned, is 13 principles. There's about 3 to 5 stories within each of those principles. And initially, when I started writing the book, it was going to be all from interviews from the remarkable people I've met, from Silicon Valley entrepreneurs to Navy SEALs to Ironman triathletes to successful executives to just a whole host of people. And the podcast is an extension of that, as I mentioned, because I just love talking to people. I know my wife kind of drives her crazy because I'm constantly grilling her with questions, and getting into a lot of these long conversations can never pull me away from the baseball field or wherever we are socially. And I love just I have this intrinsic curiosity about people, and I love pulling leadership stories out of people, because people may go, Darren's crazy. Like, who's he talking to about a therapist? Like, where's the lesson in leadership? How about an NBA player? How about a golf coach? Like, where are those lessons coming from? I love threading the needle on that and landing the plane in terms of what's the takeaway for the regular person across the world, in terms of they could be an entry-level employee, they could be a manager, they could be a senior executive, they could just someone who's trying to be better in their own life. And so I love hearing those stories and extracting some of those lessons. So the podcast has allowed me to do that. And so I've had people, 2 really successful San Diego companies, a company called Blenders Eyewear, which was founded by a guy, Chase Fisher, who I know years and years ago from just a great surfer out of San Diego State. And he created this just killer company. He hit this perfect price point in the market, really, really cool stylish shades. It's definitely born in the San Diego lifestyle. So you see it, you just feel it's just dripping San Diego, Southern California. So he's a really cool guy who's overcome his own issues around, he's dyslexic and just didn't have the opportunities. You talk about people down on their luck. I wouldn't say Chase is ever down on his luck. If you see him, he's just got this rock star persona. But, he talks about just things weren't always just given to him, and he had to just grind and work hard for them. So I love his story. I love mentioning Blenders Eyewear. I love wearing his shades every single day because I love just people seeing the two stripes, and actually obviously I love promoting him and his company, but also another really cool company, Tipsy Elves, which started by a really cool guy, Evan Mendelsohn. He's got a partner as well, but I met Evan because he basically bailed on a very successful law job to start an ugly Christmas sweaters e-commerce site. So just what a great story. Talk about like the voices in the comments he must have heard from his fellow attorneys and peers from his doing his JD MBA, I think at USC. And just like, I love stories like that. But I've also interviewed the CEO of the first bilingual charter school in Indiana. And she's a remarkable woman who's just doing some really neat things for some kids who just don't have all the opportunities in the world, and just trying to really help them to create a better futures for themselves. So people like that. Also interviewed a woman who's the head of the Golden State Warriors, all of their dance teams. So it's not just the typical dance squad, but you have the break dancing teams. You have some, I forget what they call the silver streakers, like an older group of people who also dance and perform at games, and just talking about just what it takes to be performing with no safety net. You know, you're on live TV with thousands of people watching live, millions of people beaming in, especially when they were in all those playoff runs and NBA finals. And just how do you think about performance? How do you deal with pressure? So I love just talking to just a whole variety of folks, because I think there's so much that we can learn from all different kinds of people.
You know, it's so funny. I asked you that question and you just light up, you know what I'm saying? And you can tell that obviously you love doing that. You love getting all the information out of people and finding out what pushes them. And I love it too, man. I mean, that's why I started my show, you know, for over 4 years now, and, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads around the world. And it's just the impacts, man. You get random emails, random text messages like, dude, man, hey, thanks for having this show. Love that guest. But that's why I just think I encourage people to find other podcasts, and I would encourage everybody out there, if you're looking for a new podcast, find Darren's. Darren, obviously, he's got some passion. He's having some great interviews on there as well. Once again, he's founder of the Group 60, author of The Savage Leader. Darren, one of my favorite books of all time is John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And, you know, you mentioned earlier about, you know, having questions and your wife, you know, answering questions, and you go down these rabbit holes, but we're going to go ahead and answer these 7 questions from John Maxwell's book. Are you ready, my friend?
I'm ready.
Question number 1 from John Maxwell is, Darren, what is the greatest lesson you have ever learned?
So many lessons. I think just early on, I learned. So I was 9 years old. My family pulled the plug. I'll try to keep this as short as possible because I talk about this a lot in the book too.
We get all the time.
All right, perfect. Well, a couple more hours, right? So as a 9-year-old kid, my sister was 11. My parents pulled the plug on was a very typical Northern California life. My parents are both veterinarians, which is kind of an interesting fun fact. And both left their jobs to go to live in Zurich, Switzerland for a year, and to pull us out of all of our activities and sports and academics. And which is funny because I always thought my parents were risk averse, but to be able to, if I would think about pulling my kids out of school now, moving across the country or across the world, frankly, and just pulling them out of all that and putting them into a new situation is really bold. And in terms of what I learned from that, so for whatever reason, I rebelled against going to the American school and ended up at the local Swiss public school, which is about a block from our apartment in Zurich. And so problem number 1, they speak High German in the classroom. Problem number 2 is they speak Swiss German on the playground, which is a fundamentally different language. So a German person couldn't understand a Swiss person if they're speaking Swiss German. So I had to learn 2 languages and really fast. 1, so I could keep up with the academics. 2, so I wouldn't get beat up and earn street cred. And so what I learned through getting shot with a slingshot in the playground, my face was dripping blood, having to prove myself, you know, in some various fights on the playground, is that I realized I was the new kid, I was the foreign kid, and I was the American kid. And I had to really prove myself. And what I learned from that was just the importance of empathy and seeing things from other people's perspectives. So ever since then, I always try to think about people, what are their different backgrounds, what are their different experiences, what are their different beliefs, because I think that it really helps to put yourself in other people's shoes, both to, in a lot of my coaching work, it's really helpful, but just to be a better, more connected human as well.
Yeah, man, what a cool story that is, brother. I mean, that's awesome. And pulling kids out of school is definitely interesting. Now, you know, we have traveled all across the country, like I mentioned, North Carolina, and we've homeschooled kids for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's very interesting when you pull them in different situations. What I've learned is how resilient kids are. They're very, very adaptable. And I think that is a strength that as you have it, and I'm not encouraging everybody and their mothers to run out and pull their kids out of schools and whatnot, but the strength that the kids are going to learn that you obviously are where you are for a reason. And I know that has tremendous benefit. And I'm interested to like look in the future to see where my kids are going to be, like as much adversity as they've had, as many times as they've moved, becoming a minimalist and doing all these things around the country. Man, it's gonna be a hell of a journey. I can't wait to see. I mean, I don't want to rush it, because it's so much fun right now. But man, you telling that story is just reminiscent about where I've been with my kids too. It's wild. But question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
For me, it's just more and more the importance of being authentic. And that's another thing that I think comes across as a little bit cliche, but I've just found for myself that I spent so many years trying to be the smart Darren, the Berkeley Haas MBA Darren, the Accenture Darren, versus like truly being who I am as a person. And that's taken a lot of courage, frankly. And the book actually allowed me to do that, because I ended up, as I mentioned, initially there was going to be none of my stories. Now there may be 8, maybe 9, 10 of my own stories. Hopefully not that many. I don't want to bore readers with my own stories, but is that I found just finding more of my voice, but that was through heavy editing and rounds. And the natural inclination even now is to, when I speak or write, is to not truly be that most authentic version of myself. So that's, I'd say, the biggest thing that I'm working on constantly. And the interesting thing is I found that when I'm more authentic, I'm actually more successful too. I definitely am a way better coach, way better in terms of training people and developing people and making those shifts. And I think the unintended benefit is it just feels better. You talk about the positive and, people down on their luck. I think just being true to yourself and being authentic also can lead to greater confidence.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The things that are going through my head when you're talking about authenticity, and when I relate authenticity, I think it's the easiest thing and it's the hardest thing, right? I mean, for something to be so polarizing, two different things. When you were 100% authentic, it's who you truly are, so you don't have to worry about anything. But there's so much society pushback of being truly authentic. Are you going to offend somebody? Are you going to say something wrong? And a lot of times that clouds maybe a decision that you may make, or like you said, when you coach somebody, you may tell someone that indirectly, but not the truly authentic way that you wanted to come across. So, but that's so powerful that you said that, and I appreciate you sharing that. Question number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
I mean, failure, when you ask that first question in terms of what's your biggest lesson, I've always thought, as painful as failures are, I mean, they're the fuel for growth. I think also discomfort's also the fuel for growth. Hopefully you don't have too many failures, but it's that rocket fuel. It's you got to keep getting up and learning and growing. I mean, I've had failures from whether it was not getting into a school that I wanted to go in, whether it was not having a successful business partnership, which definitely I'll consider as a failure as well. And so much I learned from that, to failing starting another company that never got off the ground the way it could have and should have, based on a past experience, and I didn't go with my gut in that situation. But I think failure is really what makes us better leaders, better humans, for sure.
Yeah. I often think to myself, like, where would I be if I didn't have those failures? You know what I'm saying? Like if all my failures, they were not failures, and I didn't actually accomplish those things, what trajectory of path would my life be on? Where would I be? What would I be doing? I mean, I think about that a lot. And, who knows what that looks like? Who knows? Am I just doing day-to-day monotonous BS that, am I going to a 9 to 5 that I can't stand? Am I in a cubicle? No disrespect to anybody in cubicles or doing 9 to 5s, but is that my life? I always often think about that. And then I also think I turn that into an attitude of gratitude, like the great Zig Ziglar. I mean, having that attitude of gratitude that I did go through it, and I'm so grateful for where I am right now in my life, that all those failures have brought me to this point, talking to you on a podcast, which is, who would have thought this years and years ago that you and I would have been talking on it? But all those failures have brought me to exactly where I am, and I am very, very grateful for all those things.
And I think you also make, or another important point is that failure needs to start early. I've seen people that just never failed. They were successful in everything in their youth, and when they failed like they failed. It wasn't a big failure necessarily, but it was hard. And I've seen people who were just successful, and it's just, I think it's really important that we give our kids a chance to fail, whether it's in sports, competitive sports, or school. And because there's just so many lessons that can be learned from that. It just makes us more adaptable, greater perseverance.
Dude, you were so right, man. I couldn't imagine. I mean, Talk about the failures. Man, I failed early, bro. I failed early hard too. But man, it's just made me so much better throughout my life. And you're exactly right, boy. If you're, I'll be 43 in a couple, in another month and a half or so. And I look back, man, if I was 43 now and had some of the failures, like, hey, be straight shooting. I filed bankruptcy 15 years ago. You talk about a failure, man. And again, no disrespect for people that are going through it now, but man, if I had to do that now, man, that would be for the first, like my first failure. Oh my gosh, that would be debilitating. It'd be crushing. I don't know, man. I don't want to go through it again, but I'm glad I went through it a long, long time ago and I've been able to come out and learn from all those lessons and check the ego at the door and all those other things that I learned from those horrible failures that I had in the past. But again, I wouldn't be where I am right now without those as well. Question number 4, I believe, is who do you know that I should know?
Who do I know that you should know? God, there's so many people. I mean, the people I mentioned, the fabulous entrepreneurs. I mean, an author I think you should definitely know and read is Keith Ferrazzi. I mean, he's been a guy who's been a mentor and a friend to me for so many years, written, I guess, 3 now fantastic books. Never Eat Alone was his big marquee book and followed it up with some big hits, but just a really incredibly dynamic speaker, first of all. And just, I've learned so much from him as an entrepreneur as well. And him trying and doing new things and taking big risks. So just something that I think is a fantastic writer and speaker for sure, and has a ton of great content. I would highly recommend picking up his books.
Well, I mean, I love the name of it. I really appreciate if you could introduce us through email. It'd be great. I'd try and get him on my show. That would be awesome as well. But I love that the name of the book, Never Eat Alone, because man, that's so important. I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, like, how many times have I eaten alone? But to have a conversation with someone maybe right next to me, or invite someone else to learn from them and pick their brain and figure out what makes them successful, and how much over time you could learn for just never eating alone. Man, that's a cool topic of a book. So yeah, I would love it. Like, I really appreciate if you can connect us. That would be awesome.
Of course.
Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
Gosh, lots of good books. Yeah, I think, well, there's a couple books. Obviously, Keith's book, Never Eat Alone, is such a great way to think about relationships. And it's not about never eat alone. It's about the original title, which I think his editor didn't think was provocative enough, was You Can't Get There Alone. The point being that we need other folks. Like, everything that we achieve is with and through other people. So I think it's a real big thing. It's about leading with generosity. It's about truly being of service to people. So I think that's a cool, good book. Gosh, I'm reading another book right now about innovation and disruption that was written several years ago. And it basically described the pandemic without having the pandemic, and just talked about how we're not thinking about things the right way. We need to have a much more of a, agile mindset. I think Team of Teams is another great book. Obviously, Jocko's book is fantastic in terms of extreme ownership, and just the idea. I love the idea of ownership, which is that next level, even beyond accountability. So that's another good book as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Jocko's book up, and I would recommend that, everybody out there that hasn't read Extreme Ownership, I would tell you this: actually listen to it, because Jocko's voice is just such a badass. Him and Leif Babin. Man, those guys are, man, you listen to them on an audiobook, man, that you're ready to freaking walk through a brick wall, dude. I mean, it's pretty intense, man. I love that book. Same thing with Goggins' book. I listened to David Can't Hurt Me. I did that one on audio book as well. And it was long. It was like 15 to 18 hours, something like that. It was really long. But man, again, same thing, adversity, overcoming obstacles, learning from your failures. So many good books there. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
I think you talked about a lot traveling around the US. I think traveling internationally and living internationally, if you haven't done that, I think it really allows you to get out of your comfort zone. And for me, I've lived in Switzerland, spent a summer in Barcelona, did a semester in Milan, in Italy, and then did 6 months in Brazil, and just obviously all of them speak different languages. So really a great chance to push yourself out of the comfort zone. And I think also by learning a language, you really learn a lot about the people and the culture. Just even you think about like the rhythm of Italian, the rhythm of Portuguese, the speed and cadence of Spanish, like you learn a lot about the culture. So I think I highly recommend spending as much time abroad as possible. Obviously these days is a little tricky, but moving forward, hopefully there's gonna be fewer limitations.
What was your favorite place to live?
Brazil, easy.
No fears of safety, because me, dumb American. I mean, that's all you think about it. Oh my gosh, I'm so afraid of Brazil. But I mean, no worries there.
So we lived in the south of Brazil in a city called Florianopolis, which sounds like it should be in Greece, but it's this beautiful, idyllic island just in the south, and it's definitely the safest state. And of course, there's problems like anywhere else, but we went to Rio and Sao Paulo, and they had some issues there, but we were fine, and just try to blend in. As my friend from Sao Paulo said, just don't wear any big brands, don't dress flashy, and just try to blend in with the group or just the general population. So, but the people are wonderful. They're so full of life. Language is beautiful. The food is incredible. If you like good meats, for the non-vegetarians, incredible fruits, just like the uncommon fruits here, or less common fruits like the mangoes and papayas and kiwi are just commonplace there. So that we're just wolfing those things down. So it's so many great things. And then down the south, lived on these incredible beaches. So I love surfing and just that beach lifestyle. So it's an incredible surf, and just the people are just so wonderful.
I'll have to check it out, my friend. I spent just a couple of days in Zurich, and I've spent some time in Ireland, but I've never been south. And Brazil, man, that sounds freaking amazing. It's funny, I mentioned crime, which is so stupid of me to even say. Like, what am I worried about? I mean, I got Chicago, like south side of Chicago is 3 hours from here. My gosh, you don't want to go there. That's for damn sure. No disrespect, but man, oh man, that's a dangerous place as well. Question number 7, final one. Again, we're talking to Darren Reinke, founder of Group 60, as well as author of The Savage Leader. Darren, how can I add value to you?
We're doing it right now. I appreciate having the chance to speak to your audience and share some of the things that I'm thinking about. So just an opportunity to spread the word is all I can ask.
Hell yeah, brother. I got you, my friend. Now tell everybody around the galaxy where they can find you.
So the best way is to check out thesavageleader.com. So you can find out about the book. We got some free tools to help you put some of those principles into action. You can also go to group60.com, GRUP, and then 60 like the number spelled out, SIXTY.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and other social channels. Yeah,
check them out for sure. And like I said, everybody comes on the show, I'd encourage them. I don't have, I'm very picky about the guests that come on my show. And I don't just have, literally, I think I get maybe 10 to 15 emails per day about, hey, I want to get on your show, I want to get on your show, I want to get on your show. And I'm very, very picky about this. So, obviously Darren's on the show, check him out. I'm not just saying that just to say it, but run over there and check out the book, check out the website. And I just like having great people that are passionate. And obviously throughout this podcast, you can kind of tell this dude, he gets it. I mean, he's passionate about helping other people and authenticity, all the same things that we talk about in the show all the time. So go check him out. Obviously, if you got any questions, you can always email me, jeremy@jeremytodd.com. Check out do me a favor, run over the YouTube. Man, I have been trying to get YouTube going forever. I'm 188 followers strong on YouTube. Holler at your boy. I'm loving it. Versus I think I've got like 12,000 or something like that on Facebook. I just can't get that YouTube going. Make my day. Run over there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Send me an email. Say, hey, Jeremy, I did it. And you know what? If you do that, I'll send you out one of my books. How about that? Let's kick it up a notch. But again, I appreciate everybody listening from all around the world, all around the galaxy. I say it in every single episode. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is The Positive Side.